Welcome back. This is the I Refuse podcast, season 1, episode 3. And for this particular podcast, we're going to talk about brotherhood. Had the distinct honor of going out with some friends last night, and while we were in DC, I started to reflect as we were commiserating and having conversations and laughing about various things that the synergy that we all share, even when we FaceTimed earlier in the evening, just the energy, the synergy, just we have such a connection. And we come from different backgrounds, but it's just how the universe works where here you are on this earth just existing, doing your thing, accomplishing missions and accomplishing goals, and the universe just has a way of bestowing upon you the honor and the privilege of meeting other people that you have no prior context with, no like 7 degrees of separation with anybody. They're just there, and you guys just immediately just start laughing, having great conversations, and having all these great moments. And there's no rhyme or reason or explanation for it, but it just happens. And last night, I just couldn't help but be inspired by the meaning of brotherhood, true brotherhood. You have collectives out there that swear up and down, either consciously or subconsciously, that they're in a brotherhood, yet and still, as somebody that picks up on subtext, the reality is it's not a brotherhood if you only include your favorites, which are predominantly people that look just like you. It's not an issue for people of color to embrace, but it's often an issue with people that are non-POC. There's just inconsistencies between the words and the actions. And brotherhood is not hard to come by, it's not hard to accomplish. It's not something that is forced. You don't have to announce it to the world that, hey, this is a brotherhood. It's just a natural way of being and a way of living. It's an attitude, it's a behavior, it's something that's within you already. It's not something that is defined by the outside world. It's not something that is told to you. It's just there already. For those that don't know me, have never met me, I am the youngest of 8 children, and from as far back as I can remember, I've always identified with my older brother Maurice. There's a 12-year age difference, so when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and this is stuff that's been told to me since it happened. Whenever he would go off to school, I was told that I would sit by the front door until he got back, and I'd be hanging out with him the whole time. And that kind of thing, like I would be like under his wing, or I guess riding along with him. That occurred for about 6 years straight, almost. He had a really good friend by the name of Neil, and the three of us would just hang out, and it was a great escape and everything. So that was my first taste of brotherhood. Like, we're not all alike, yet here we are, just being in the moment, not recognizing race, not making it a big deal, not recognizing age, not making that a big deal, not recognizing the outward appearance, clothes, what you smell like, what kind of car you drive, how big is your house, what do you do for a living, how much money do you make, your background. Oh, like if you live in the hood, oh, I can't fuck with you. Oh, if you live in the suburbs, your parents are automatically going to be prejudiced against me because I come from a different environment. None of that was the case. Again, this is during an era where a lot of the kids from different backgrounds, like I said in one of my previous episodes, where we came from different walks, different ethnicities, different cultures, different backgrounds, different neighborhoods. Yet here we are just having a good time and enjoying each other. And you walk away a better person, and so do they. And it's not anything that's scripted, it's not anything that has to be, it just is. It's just an organic, free flowing transference of energies between people that are positive, people that just have that ability, people that are born and taught to be great people. And then that kind of brotherhood have transcended in other areas of my life where I went to the military. I mean, anybody that is familiar with the military, has people in the military, just knows that there is a collective, there is a brotherhood there. And what people don't understand is that people may talk, people may say whatever, but at the end of the day, as long as you wear that uniform and as long as you're outside of that uniform, you have a responsibility. That in itself is separate, but that whole attitude of brotherhood, that's something that is instilled in you from the moment you step into basic training. And it's up to each individual to carry that mantra through their life or through their career in the military. But since in my life, I came up with brothers, older brothers, mentors, people I idolize, people whose example reflects some concepts of strength and mental fortitude and emotional balance and spiritual support. And that's always carried me through a lot. Still to this day, the same couple of people that I came across when I was in the Air Force for 4 years, I still keep in contact with and I still keep up with. And it's not something that, again, is forced. You always keep, when you have a connection, it always stays there. Doesn't matter how long it's been since you last spoke. It doesn't matter if, it's been years since you last physically saw each other. The conversation picks up as if nothing ever happened. And last night I was sitting there. We were at I think we were at Trade or Number 9 in DC. And it wasn't to celebrate anything. I mean, it wasn't for like a public event or anything. We got together and we went to DC. We talked, we laughed, we were just being ourselves. There was no pretense, there was no bullshit. We were just how we were. And there was no judgment. There was no talking behind each other's backs. There was no secret vote to kick people out of the friendship or the circle. The three of us, what you see is what you get. We don't play in your face and talk behind your back. We just keep it 100% real. And we're intensely loyal to one another and we're intensely loyal to others. And that's something, again, that's not taught. It's not something that, comes over time. We just arrive that way and we leave that way. I just don't understand why it's so hard for other factions and other circles and otherwise. I refuse to believe that it's hard to do. I refuse to believe that inconsistency is the upper hand in this society. I refuse to believe that we can't coexist because we're different, or we can't coexist at all. Too often people let the ego and too often people let the hearsay poison their mind. And I look at them and I'm like, well, you've known me X amount of years. You've seen me X amount of years with your own two eyes, and it was never a problem. Now you have a problem. Now you run for the hills and ensure that you disassociate yourself with me as fast as you can. And too oftentimes in society, people treat people of color like throwaways. They treat them like they're disposable. Um, and, for me, I take my intel along the way. I go out in public, um, socialize, me just being me, engaging. This is what's been told. I effervesce. I say effervesce. People say, "Oh, well, you're just a flirt or whatever." Um, but everybody has an evolution. Everybody has an evolution in this life. Where they are now is not how they started. Where they are now, they are much better than where they started. I know for me, I wasn't always this outgoing. And people fail to realize being outgoing takes a lot of energy if you're not biologically or chemically that way. Um, I mean, oftentimes, we may just overthink things and overanalyze while the moment is happening in front of us and we miss our opportunities. Um, but I have been fortunate and blessed and thankful for being outgoing because it has allowed me to have a village of supportive, energetic, amazing people who I've known no less than 3 or 4 years. And I have known at least 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, when word got around that I was doing a podcast, I had people from my village that were like, "Yes, bitch, do it. I support you." And they like every single fucking post that I post on IG, I post on Twitter, and they're there all the time. When I was going through some of my darkest days, my ex-husband, my husband passing 5 years ago, which was abrupt, but it wasn't a shock. I know the truth of how he passed, which is not going to come up on a death certificate. But yet and still, the result from that, the emotional, mental challenges, and the great effect of a sudden death on your spirituality and your meaning of life, it took me about a good year and a half to finally A, get back to who I was, B, accept what his death taught me, and C, just get the energy and the spirit back that I had and use that moment to live the most out of life. I mean, this is not our practice life. This is not, we do not get any do-overs with this life. It's like one book, several chapters. Some of us don't make it past the two or three chapters. Some of us are just existing in ourselves or whatever. But it's always very important to keep and maintain the brotherhood or the sisterhood that you have with people, because their energies are very motivating and very inspiring. A lot of people aren't aware of that. A lot of people meet all these people and go on and laugh and kiki, and that's pretty much the extent of their experience with that person. And they just assume that they're friends. Like, I know when I was in the military, a huge workforce where I worked, my first job in the military, and I would notice that the lower ranking people would tell their supervisor all of their business. Um, and I just refuse to be that free and be that objective with my boundaries, because whether people like to believe it or not, some of what you tell that person may influence their their opinions when it comes to evals, and when they address or measure your ability or measure your capability. Because if you go, think about it, if you go to an employer, you've been in the office for a couple of years, you think you guys have this friendship, and you've been telling him literally the entire cycle of this relationship that you're in with this guy or this girl or a partner or lover, whatever, and they know every single detail of this timeline. And you go in your office one day and you sit with him and you tell him, such and such has been sleeping around on me. Now, first of all, that's too much information. Secondly, you have a choice to leave and not accept any kind of treatment. But it's like, you're there to work, right? Yeah, you guys laugh, you guys have your moments and everything, but once you cross a boundary, once you move the line, there's no going back, and the waters get muddy, and things are lines are crossed. It's just not conducive. I know when I saw that, and I had already had a good idea of how my office was running, there was a clear divide and a clear disconnect between those in my office that were of similar rank or a little bit higher than me, and the person that was often put in charge. And there was definitely a turnstile of like different people put in to, I guess, quote unquote, lead us. Each one, each one was less effective than the previous, and they had no more handle on their life than they did on the office, and it showed. And they lost a lot of respect from me and the other person, and they just went about the whole leadership thing in the wrong way. It was not one of inspiration; it was more one of control and micromanagement. I don't know why people thought that shit was cute, but it's not. So it's, navigating the workforce, navigating adulthood with, you know, relationships and friendships. It's very important with this brotherhood or this sisterhood to keep that intact, because believe it or not, it's not about the quantity of your village or your collective. It's about the quality. Um, that's why I think it's always very important to sit back and observe. Of course, introduce yourself if you're meeting someone new, whether it's through somebody you already know, a mutual friend or whatever, or it's just a new person entirely. Um, Sit back and observe after you've had that formal introduction and get a feel for their energy. Um, and I mean, for me, if the person is upward and is a go-getter and is a lot of fun, that could be a start of something. But sometimes it doesn't always work, and you have to leave people where you meet them and forge ahead. Um, no, no person in a brotherhood or a sisterhood is a distraction or a detriment to your growth and your development. They actually add to it. And I've been very fortunate in my life, whether it's from my biological brothers, there's about 4 or 5 of them, to my really dear friend, Justin, who I met when I was like 17, and we're still friends to this day. So we're talking like over 15 years. Even to the 4 or 5 women from, since meeting Justin, who I'm still in touch with, to the really good friends I've met over 10 years ago, and I'm still good friends, and we're still very, very close to this day. Each one of those people in those groups loves on me and supports on me, and they keep me going. Oftentimes more so than some family. I mean, no shade, no tea, no shade there. Not everybody is as active a participant or an active communicator in this direction. But you can support from afar, and that's what people do. And I appreciate every single drop of support. Um, I know last night I was sitting there and I was just like, man, this is a beautiful thing. Um, when you have a brotherhood and a friendship that is not based on what the other person can get out of it. Too oftentimes people move in this world and think that people don't pick up on it, but they move through this world out for one goal. Well, what's in it for me? Um, and for me, I was lucky enough to pick up on that when I would go out on dates, and I started to notice that the guy was more interested in being driven around to do errands than he was actually on the date. Um, and it just hit me then. I was like, yeah, this isn't going to go that far. And I was like, is this what it's come to? I mean, are people actually coming out to date? Or are people actually coming out to eat food? Um, I just never understood that. And the way my mind works, I kind of went off into that situation, analyzing it as I'm on this mic. Um, and I walked away from that like, what in the actual hell is this? Is this fuckery here? Like, you have a lot of people don't know this by looking at me. Um, so I look younger than I actually am. And I think from that, people approach me differently or seem to have this perception of me that, oh, you know, this is going to be cool. This is going to be, you know, I'm going to get whatever I want out of this person. But the gotcha is you didn't get much. You didn't get far. You know, as soon as you got out the car, you didn't have a vehicle, and you went into your little small ass apartment, and you blew your opportunity. Like, I have no problem with meeting people where they are, and like seeing the good in them. You know what I mean? Like, everybody has something in them, this potential, this energy to do well in life and to be better. There's always room for improvement. Again, like, I tend to go into a situation as an observer of people. A little bit of interaction here and there, but I'm an observer first. And it was just like, wow, you really are like in this movie not acting like you're on a date. Okay, this is cute. That's probably one of the reasons why I don't I don't do it that often. But I'll go into dating and relationships on another episode. But we could have left as friends, and not just in the word, the sense of the word, but as actual friends. Um, Too often, see, this is the other side of the coin where, you have the potential to have a friendship with someone, even if the date doesn't work, even if you don't feel like an emotional connection to someone, you still have the ability to exercise a brotherhood and a friendship with that person, um, and keep that person in your life. Because not for nothing, um, a person that may not be a quality partner, or you may not have a quality emotional connection with, can still be a quality friend to you. Um, Too oftentimes people have told me, "Oh, let's just be friends," and you don't hear shit from them at all after that. Not a text, not a letter, not a smoke signal. I'm like, bitch, like, we are all adults, legal adults, working adults. You can do better. Um, and then, like, I couldn't communicate that to other people because they were like, a lot of people are like, well, people don't owe you anything. You're absolutely right. But why is that the only option? Um, I mean, I'm not above popping up on people and ask questions straight to their face, like, "Where you been? Are you well? Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Do you need water? Cause I thought you were dead." Um, and it threw people off guard when I'm driving up the road and they're walking up the road and they see me and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? How you been? What's going on?" Like, there's absolutely no reason to disrespect and emotionally abuse um, people that give a shit at all. Um, they don't come along often. Um, and even more so, the people that don't want anything out of the situation, they don't come along often either. Um, People often get with others for the benefit of having a place to sleep or having food to eat, and they don't ever have a moment, like, they don't exercise being vulnerable or opening up, or um, about their struggles in life. Just, it doesn't have to be like a full on fix my life Iyanla episode, but I mean, not for nothing with me, like, things just happen to come out, and it just all starts with the question, well, what's going on and why? And if you ask me a question, I'm not going to lie to you, and we have a whole conversation. Because again, my husband's death 5 years ago has taught me to enjoy and share yourself with other people. Not just your time, but actually share yourself with other people. People that you love, people that love on you, people that support you. Um, and in those 5 years since he's passed, I have taken full advantage of that attitude and of that behavior. And it's not a contradiction. It's not a contradiction to masculinity. It's not a contradiction to femininity. Celebrating your truth and being vulnerable with those with supportive energy and loving energy. It's not a contradiction to those attitudes or the normatives that have been placed on you, that have been, I guess, taught to you in your environment when you were younger. It's not a contradiction, and it would be great if we stepped out of that. away from this whole attitude or this strict social construct where, oh well, boys can't wear pink, boys can't play with dolls, boys can't like pick up a book with girls in on the cover and on the pages. We have got to get away from that. I've been very fortunate in my childhood. I might get a couple of. I remember I would probably get a couple of looks from family members like, why is Jason playing with a Barbie? Why is he not playing with a monster truck? Or some bullshit like that. And you know what? Even at 5 years old, I would still pick up that Barbie and play with her hair. And that's not an indication of being less than a man or less than a brother or less than capable of sustaining an all-male friendship or an all-male relationship that's non-sexual. That's not a contradiction to the meaning of brotherhood. I will tell you this though, like the other things that I've seen recently, I'm like, yeah, if I was on fire and you wouldn't spit on me and we're supposed to be brothers, we're not brothers. That's not a brotherhood. If you are a full grown ass man, and I am too, and we all are full ass grown men, and you throw me under the bus and throw me out in the trash, or attempt to throw me out in the trash, I just hit the mic because I'm getting a little hype, over some hearsay, over some bullshit, we're not brothers. A human male cannot be brothers with a snake, and that's true tea. That's true tea. And the sad thing is, at first, when you have an open heart, a big heart, the snakes are not going to be obvious to you for a while. They wear clothes, socks, underwear, pants, and shirt button-ups or whatever. Sometimes they wear glasses. Sometimes they wear short shorts and nasty pig socks. They look like you and me. They have great jobs. Some not so great jobs. They look like you and me. Yet things just they show their true colors when a different opinion enters the universe or enters their egocentric bubbles, and that's when the real person the real snake comes out. And you just had to wonder, like, who the fuck was I, like, sharing my air and my personal space and breaking bread with all these years? Who was that? Because who I'm seeing right now isn't what I call a brother, or this is not a brotherhood, you know? The problem is that a lot of people, they will, over time, just show themselves to be just not. They only go up what most benefits them, and it's usually something that it's physical. I see it, you see it. It's nice for about a good half an hour or however long it can stay up. And that's the only thing that matters. That is the only thing that matters. And too oftentimes people that look like me are up to the guillotine over it. whereas that energy is not the same if the two people involved are of the same hue, HUE. Now that's T. And I'll go into more on another episode about that. But none of that is brotherhood. You want to know what is brotherhood? When the shoe is on the other foot and you hear things, because everybody in this world has some kind of perception out there from other people of them, and some kind of merit or reputation out there that you may or may not be aware is being cultivated and is being formed. I mean, the majority of it is some bullshit because perception is not always reality. I mean, it's not overall general reality. The perception is that person's reality. And that shit changes from day to day. So there really isn't any weight behind that concept, and there really isn't much to gather or to analyze there. Because the moment they leave your space, or the moment they leave the moment that you and him or you and her just had, they go back to their reality, which is of despair and doom and instability. And like the ceiling is low, the potential is low, but they have all this energy to sit behind the keyboard and sit behind their keypad on their phone and create this narrative that is reckless, is disrespectful, is very, very damaging, and unfortunately very powerful. It usurps what people have actually seen and know of you. And people pick that shit up and eat it up and take it as gospel truth. And guess what, person of color? You are kicked the entire fuck out. And there is nothing you can do or say about it because you are outnumbered. Everywhere you go, you're outnumbered. What you thought was home is not. What you thought was friendship is not. They ate off of you. They benefit off of you, of your energy, of your creativity, of your fortitude, of your confidence, of your spirituality, of your mental strength, of all this creative ability and potential that you thought was being put to good use. I mean, and they just take this big ass broom or this street sweeper and just sweep your black ass into the trash can and keep on moving. And that is not brotherhood. I mean, it's such a shame. It's such a shame. That's why I have got to pay more close attention to those that actually write a word on a piece of paper, and those that actually walk that shit into into a real tangible feeling, a real tangible emotion. They walk in that shit, and they make it possible. They make it a possible feeling for those that don't look like them, for those that aren't really upper echelon. They don't make the six figures. They don't have the nice car, the nice house. They actually make that tangible thing, that attitude, that behavior, an environment that is comforting and safe for them and progressive and inclusive for them. Not just those they prefer, not just their favorites, not just people they want to sleep with and they love sleeping with, not just those, but every person. Every person, I put the every part in caps. But yet and still, like, in this climate, man, with 45 up there, being reckless, it's empowered other reckless people to be even more reckless. And they think they're being, smart and tactful and careful with what they say. But as a person that picks up on subtext, you're telling me a whole lot more than you realize. And none of it is for the greater good. A lot of it is a contradiction to what I presumed you believed, which I thought was the same shit that I believed. But we don't. No. Not the way that you carry on. Not the way that you went about things. Not the way that you're acting. And it's sad. It's a fucking shame. Like, we're all adults here. We are making so much of a difference in other people's lives. A noticeable difference. And people let the mud and the high school antics and the kiddie playground sandbox bullshit cloud their judgment and overpower what is real. They've aligned themselves, unfortunately, with a narrative that is covered in prejudice and covered in discriminatory attitudes towards people of color. But it's going to take more than one person and more than one day, probably with flashcards and diagrams and shit, to explain and deconstruct what all of that looks like. Because during the course of this life, people don't pay attention, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, to what the hell is going on and what the hell has what the effect that the hell has on other people. And it is such a shame. It really is. But anyway, it's just not brothers. It's not a brotherhood. Brotherhood is not something you pick and choose. Brotherhood is not like a game of dodgeball where you pick and choose the popular people, or you pick and choose your friends, and you pick and choose people you're cool with. Brotherhood is for everybody. And this is coming from somebody that was picked last at dodgeball. But look at me now. I done came up, served my country. I've went to college. Every day I defeat the odds. And I keep on rising. And an opinion is just like an asshole. Everybody's got one. And I'm immune to every asshole and every opinion. Especially from those that have little to no investment in my everyday life. Not a text message, not a call, not a welfare check. Like, hey, I'm just gonna pop up and see how you are. You healthy? You hydrated? You know, how you doing on those meds? How you doing with your house? How you doing in life? What's next for you next week or next month? None of that bullshit. It would be nice to go back to that. It would be so nice to actually go back to what it means to have a brotherhood, to be brothers. I know what it looks like every day in my own life because, like I say, I have brothers. I have brothers in my family. Cousins in my family are my brothers. I have sisters, biological sisters. I have female cousins. Those are my sisters. I have best friends. Those are my brothers and sisters. Justin is my brother for life. Mr. Cartier is my brother for life. Mr. Parker is my brother for life. Mr. Chestnut is my brother for life. And Mr. Etter is my brother for life. And I'm making a point to say those names because they are not my biological brothers, but they are people that the universe has granted and has honored me the privilege to be best friends with them. And those are my ride or dies outside of my family. And the majority of them, do not look like me. Yet, it's a brotherhood. Interesting. I was able to successfully cultivate and curate actual brotherhood with people that don't look like me and have actually maintained it. There isn't a rotating membership. There's not any loss. Nobody's quit. Nobody's resigned. Nobody's disappeared all of a sudden. Who I come into this world with, and who has stayed in my life, is still here, and I'm still in their life. Funny how that is. And yet people look at me like I'm the problem. Ooh, girl. Ooh, boy. The fire isn't always on this side. The smoke isn't always on this side. My backyard's nice and clean. What about yours? I think I'm gonna take a break from being a little subliminal. But that all of what I just said the past 10 or 15 minutes, I wanted to actually paint a picture of all the things that entail the variables of a great brotherhood, and the other side of brotherhood and how it's not a brotherhood and what that looks like. And unfortunately, try as people might say that it is, it's not. And it's not like that because people are still in high school, people are still being the mean girls, people are still doing all the things that undermine what brotherhood means and what being a brother means. And it's sad. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be an uphill battle. It doesn't have to be everybody be defined and be defensive and be reckless blindly without all the facts. It's great that you have an opinion, but a person's experience trumps all opinions. And what people need to realize in this life is that everything you say and everything you do towards a person comes back tenfold to you. It may not come in the appearance of the person you're doing the damage to, but it'll come in other ways. You may not get the job you go for. You may not. Your car may break down. Things may not work in your life. Appliances, people. You may lose a job. You may. Shit just may end up happening. Like real tangible shit, not what's been assumed or what's being told through a Facebook post from somebody that's not even living in the same area that you and I are living in. Yeah, people pick up and still run with that shit. And that's not brotherhood. It's just a pack of mean girl 5th graders disguised like you and me. Literally misery personified. Brotherhood should be a positive thing. I've gone through an experience where it's not, and people are not picking up on the effects of the damage that they're doing and the effects of the narrative they're aligning themselves with. And it's very unfortunate because at one point in my life, these were people I thought I was cool with. These were people I thought were the real motherfucking deal. And they're not. And don't cry for me, Argentina, because you know what? The shit I've gone through way worse shit. Some shit I almost didn't survive. I've contemplated suicide several times. I've been homeless several times. I've survived house fires, drug raids. When I was 11 years old, having 5 to 10 guns pointing at me by members of a SWAT team. So, what's an opinion, Whether it's from 5 people or 500 people, whether it's from a second or third party, what's an opinion? It's not going to kill me. But too oftentimes, too many passive people allow the drama to build and allow the nonsense to build, which ultimately a pile of shit is going to bring the whole fucking thing down. And I will be on the sideline eating my popcorn. I will be on the sideline looking at the Mess Express, give my thumbs up, call out a couple of names, see if they're okay, and going about my leisurely way, remaining happy, focusing on my self-care, focusing on my mental strength and my spirituality and all the things that matter to me. There's nothing wrong with saying to yourself, I'm going to focus on me and focus on everything that makes me happy, that builds me up and brings me confidence and brings me joy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. The reality is, and your experiences are valid, and they are the truth. So with that being said, this has been another wonderful walk through what it means to have a brotherhood and to reinforce those attitudes, how important that is to do that. This hasn't been an easy episode to produce. I literally just unpacked a lot of my own personal trauma and how a collective could go from what you thought were caring, supportive people to a bunch of people that can give a shit whether or not you're on fire. and how you can be a person that feels the need just from instinct to try to put out any fires. Um, and nobody gives a shit. Because in their mind, what others have said about you is true. What others have said about you is confirmed. And you must be dealt with how they see fit. Which is often on a level far above the actual situation. People are a trip, man. I'm gonna drink my lemonade though. Hold on. I should have made this half and half. Cause I know I just spilled some tea. But it's my life and my experience, and I'm not gonna lie about shit. And there's nobody that's gonna stop me from doing that. So with that, I'm going to close out this powerful podcast episode with this. Never abandon your village of supportive, loving friends and family, and those that mean you well. That energy is very much inspiring and very much motivating. I know for me, there are two women in my life that inspired me. There are also two men, well, three men. Two women, my sister, and my dear friend, Miss Huff. She knows who she is. They both, one actually is a couple years older than me, and I was able to see her go to college. That inspired me to do the same. And the other actually put the nuggets on my plate of a school to go to. I mean, the school ultimately was a bag of shit. But she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to say, there's a school that I heard of, it's pretty good, that works really well with veterans that are, or Air Force members that are traveling. It's completely online. You go at your own pace. Okay, I'll bite. But just that taste from that experience served a bigger purpose of going back to college, which I did back in 2011, 2012. Although I had to start over, pretty much from having 56 credits to having only 21, transferred to the school. I had to start over at community college, no big deal. But I stuck with it while working, and here I sit with a double major bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And this all started with just a conversation in her dorm room back in 2002. Here it is, 2020, and I have a fucking master's. I'm the only male in my family, a big-ass family, to have a master's. And this all started from a little conversation from a member in my village. Now here we are. I have a master's, the only male in my family to have a master's. My sister has a couple of masters, the only woman in our family to have a bachelor's or a master's, or actually go and complete college. Same for me. I actually beat our cousin to graduating. He can never decide on a major. But anyway, you just never know where a conversation with a person you just met could go, or where a conversation with a person in your village could go. For me, it's always gone into a positive direction. And when it doesn't, I mean, that person was never part of my village to begin with and was never a friend to begin with. Luckily, I've never put so much energy into a person that never was a friend. Luckily, I didn't go down in that hole and feel trapped. I'm a lot smarter than that these days, boy. Um, but never take those moments for granted. Never take your brotherhood or your sisterhood for granted. Um, that sort of thing is very special and could take you and the other people in the village, even those that aren't even in the conversation, can take all of you to places you couldn't even imagine or dream. Um, you know, I've been blessed. I've been thankful. I take every day as a blessing, man, and you've got to do the same. You have got to do the same. So this has been this is I Refuse podcast. Remember to subscribe. Remember to stay with us. We're going to have more wonderful content along the way, and there will be guests in the future. I've already started to reach out to a few people. I have a wild bunch, and this podcast is not for kids. We get real on these mics. We get real in this little studio. We really go in. And it's not to shame anybody. Like, I didn't drop full last names or first names or anything of anybody, but the names I did drop are the most important people, and the names I didn't drop are the ones that are not important. So boom. So bloop, like Nene would say, bloop, bloop, bloop on you. But remember to subscribe to the I Refuse podcast. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. This is the I Refuse podcast. I Refuse is one word. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We are live and in living color. I hope you enjoy all the content that I share. I hope you keep supporting us. You make us who we are. And I don't take any of you for granted, any of my viewers, any of my audience. So with that being said, this has been another great episode of For the I Refuse podcast, because, bitch, I refuse.